What's something that seemed totally harmless when you were a kid but now feels super weird or creepy as an adult? Story 1. A woman in her 30s used to let my friends and I in our young teenage years, 12, 14, hang out in her house every night. This woman would supply with us with alcohol, legal limit 18, and cigarettes, at the time, legal limit 16, while her under 2-year son slept upstairs with the music on full volume and us not being quiet at all. We only used the downstairs bathroom. No one was allowed upstairs. They would always ask for our older male friends to come round, guys 15, 16s, and flirt with them a lot. Once my mom found out, she put an end to it. I was furious with her. I didn't understand why I couldn't hang out with this woman. No harm was coming to me, right? Well, my mom told my friend's parents, and nobody was allowed back, and this woman soon moved from the area. Looking back over 20 years later, I can see all the problems as clear as day. The woman's child I feel the worst for. They must have been screaming upstairs and being neglected. There were times we were there well over 8 hours and she'd beg us to stay. The poor child must have been hungry, needing diaper changes, just needing motherly attention, and she was more interested in keeping a bunch of kids in her house thinking she was cool. I don't know if she ever touched anyone inappropriately, but she certainly said inappropriate things. Yeah, if I found out my kids were doing this, I would act like my mom. Story 2. My mom's grown-ass male friends always wrestling me late at night and her encouraging it, even when I'd yell for them to stop. Then them creeping in and taking my belongings out of my room when I was asleep and waking me up telling me I could only have it back if I came out and wrestled them for it. Or chasing me while I ran and hid under my bed because a grown-ass man was trying to tickle me even though I was screaming and clearly afraid of him. He'd come into my room and reach under and tickle me that way. I hated it so much. Story 3. When I was a kid growing up in the South, we played a prisoner game where we had a bucket of white marbles with a single black marble or stone. You had to close your eyes and reach in, and whomever got the black marble was the prisoner, and they had to run and hide, and all the rest of us had to chase them and try to stop them from escaping. We had cap guns and super soakers. In retrospect, a game that involved a group of all white kids running through fields and around houses with toy guns screaming, "Let's find the black kid before he escapes!" Probably would not be advisable these days. Story 4 Omegle. But I met my best friend in the entire world on Omegle in 2012 when I was 17 and he was 16. We were both working on art and ended up talking for over 8 hours that night. We have known each other for 12 years. I love him with all my heart, and to this day, I wonder if he is my soulmate. Him and I have talked about it, and he has questioned the same thing. We have yet to meet in person because we live across the world from each other. But every time we talk, it's as if sparks are flying. I plan to visit him in the next year. We shall see what happens. Edit. Thank you to everyone for interacting with my comment. I feel so happy, and it makes me realize just how much I love him. I've had relationships over the years and almost got married last year. I moved across the country last year after that breakup. I've met people, went on dates, all of that. I've been through a lot. Ups and downs, so has he. We have seen each other at our worst. We have known different versions of each other. I just have a gut feeling that he may be my soulmate. If he is, that is a true blessing. Maybe someday we will see each other at our best together. Story 5. My mom let a guy, mid-40s, from church take my sister and I, separately, to a nearby musical theater, about an hour away a few times a year. I was in high school, and my sister was in elementary middle school during this time. Sometimes we'd meet his wife at the venue, but he always transported us alone. I don't remember anything untoward happening, but looking back, I don't know why my mom would allow this. I guess being from church made him trustworthy or something. Very strange coming from someone who wouldn't even let me have a boy over with supervision. Story 6. Walking up to strangers' houses and asking if they had any kids to come out and play. Seriously. As a kid, I would walk around the neighborhood and just randomly knock on doors asking if they had kids, and if so, if they wanted to come out and play. Some of these neighbors even offered for me to come in and have something to drink or a snack. Seemed totally harmless then. Now, well, I don't think you would get any good looks if, as an adult, you went and knocked on random doors asking if there were any kids to come out and play LOL. Joking aside, yeah, I guess I was lucky nobody decided to kidnap me or kill me or who knows what, but great way to make new friends back then. Story 7. When I was a young girl, I didn't think it was weird for adult men to ask me about my dating life or history. I was that teen that thought she was very mature for her age. And adults would tell me I was all the time, so it didn't seem inappropriate. Now, the idea of a 20-something-year-old man asking a 14-year-old girl about who she's dating, and what she likes is so disgusting. I get if you are a dad trying to stay close to your daughter, just to know what's going on, etc., but not some random girl. Gross. I now tell teenage girls all the time, in 5 years, you will be shocked by how much of a kid you are right now in this moment. Adults don't see you as a peer. They get annoyed. But whatever, you gotta keep kids safe. Story 8. At 16, worked at Subway next to a Dollar General. Knew 2 of the male employees who were 20 plus. Went to a Blink 182 concert with a friend and ran into them. They offered my friend and me a ride home and we said sure. Instead, took us to their parents' home who weren't there. Nothing luckily happened and they eventually dropped us at home. Wild looking back how many rides I took from strangers and am somehow not on 48 hours. BTW, I am only 30, so this was in 2010s. Story 9. Being in soccer practice, and the coach would make us turn around and stick our butts out so someone can practice their aim and kick the ball at our butts. He would have about 4 people stand in a line bent over with our rears out, and have someone with the same amount of balls as there were people bent over kick them at the bent over kids. If the ball hit your butt, you were out, and if you were kicking the ball and missed, then you didn't score a point. We had to run around bent over at times, and now that I think about it, why did the parents let that man do that? Story 10. Beauty and the Beast. I love the movie, I can sing all the songs, I watched it all the time growing up, watching it with my kids, and I suddenly saw it completely differently. You meet a guy and he's a total a-hole? It's okay, you can change him. He flies off the handle, orders everyone around, becomes easily frustrated and throws stuff around. It's okay. Inside he's a good guy and you can change him. Yikes. Yeah, not the greatest lesson. Story 11. Everything felt creepy and weird to me as a kid and everyone told me to get over it and stop being a pussy. Now everyone's like, everything's weird and creepy, and I'm angry because I spent my entire life learning that normal is a lie. And now everyone wants to act like they're having fucking epiphanies realizing shit is whack. And I'm just over here like, you're a fucking ingrate if you really took 20 plus years to figure that out. Story 12. How my dad insisted on being in the room during my medical exams, even into my late teens. The few times I expressed discomfort, he gave me the silent treatment for days after because it looks weird for you not to want me in the room. Like he felt that my not wanting him in the exam room was abnormal, and now the doctor would think I didn't want him there because he was sexually abusing me. Now as an adult, I'm like, no, that's totally fucking normal to not want your father in the room when you're getting a pelvic exam. He was controlling and creepy about my body and development, and it fucked me up for decades. Story 13. My uncle, not by blood but because of marriage, called me his GF. I didn't like it, but no one thought much of it. Fast forward to now, I'm 29, and it really freaks me out. Mentioned it last year when my parents, brothers, and sisters-in-law were there, and all of them were appalled. They didn't remember it, really. My dad said he kinds of remembered it. Anyways, it makes me really uncomfortable to think about it. Story 14. When my adult next-door neighbor, who I barely knew, came over and cornered me, asking for a hug when he was moving away. I was like 5 years old, had hardly spoken with him before, and was the only other one outside. He told me he was going to miss me. I remember being weirded out at the time. In hindsight, I have a hard time thinking that man had any innocent motivations for needing to say goodbye that badly. Story 15. I'm sure she's probably passed now. She was older, but my high school French teacher was tiny, like under 5 feet and super cute. She used to ask me to carry her around, as a joke. Me, a gangly high schooler, thought it was funny, and I used to carry her, out to her car and stuff. Of course I was sexually attracted, but hey, I was in high school. A girl I dated later was her babysitter, and she would tell the girl that it was okay for me to come over too. I never did. This was in the 80s. I was stupid. I could have fooled around with a teacher. Story 16. Lawn darts. My brother and I used to throw them at each other in a game of dare. The idea was to stand about 6 feet apart with legs spread out and take turns throwing the lawn darts at each other between the legs. Once each had thrown the darts, we would collect them and take a large step back and try again. If the person jumped back out of fear of the lawn dart hitting them, they lost. Fun until our mom stopped us, took our lawn darts away. We then started using knives. Story 17. When my best friend and I were juniors and seniors in HS, we had a job where we worked with a ton of people who were 21 plus. Her mom went out of town often, so she would always throw parties and invite our HS friends and then, inevitably, our coworkers. And these 21-plus-year-olds would always come and bring alcohol. At the time, I thought nothing of it except cool. Now we have more to drink. Looking back at it now that I'm nearing 40, I'm like, WTF. It's so weird that they would come and want to hang out at a high schooler's mom's house. What was wrong with them? Story 18. If you mucked up in our all-boy PE class, the teacher would make you stand to one side and put your hands down the front of your shorts. Nothing else. Just stand there with your hands down your shorts. As teenage boys, we all thought it was hilarious, especially if the teacher threatened a kid bouncing a ball while we were supposed to be listening with a line like, "Put the ball away, or I'll give you some other balls to play with." We loved that PE teacher. He was a great guy, but I can't imagine he'd get away with it these days. Story 19. Back in high school, my 16-year-old friend told me about a guy her parents were trying to set her up with. He was in his mid-20s. At the time, I remember being kind of impressed that she could pull this guy who seemed very established in life as a potential husband. Looking back, it just screams red flag. I understand now that it's a very big issue, especially in certain religious communities where girls are married, sold off by their parents. I just would have never suspected my friend's parents of this behavior. They were well-educated, seemed financially prosperous, and generally appeared to be nice people. Anyway, my friend was not having any of it, and I think gave her parents hell. My friend is in her late 20s now and still happily single. Story 20. Night before last, my husband and I were watching Weird Science. My husband said, and I quote, "I don't know at what age this scenario went from being hot and thinking they're so lucky to highly inappropriate." He said, "When I was young, it was like hell yeah. Now it feels so wrong. If you've seen the movie, you know what he's talking about. I guess it has a lot to do with the parent factor. Having teens ourselves makes you think about things differently. I was honestly very proud of him." Story 21. My parents had a single 40-year-old male friend who would sit me on his lap when I was 4 and tell me how pretty I was and how he was going to marry me when I'm old enough, and everyone would go, "Oh, that guy, he's so sweet." It never really bothered me as a kid, but now, oh my God, it mortifies me to think about. Story 22, looking at people. I just like to see how people are different. So many different shapes of noses, faces, different colors of hair. I mean, in elementary school, they literally make songs about how people look different, and that is okay. But as an adult, people get offended when you look at them. Women think you're perving on them. Men think you want to fight them. No, I'm just looking at your face and imagining what your story is. Like a movie writer looking for actors, actresses in a movie that's not being made in real life, but it's being made in my mind. Story 23. This was about 2 years ago, but it still applies. So I have an ex-boyfriend that is 2 years older than me, and that age gap is practically nothing, but I was 16 and he was 18 when we got together, so there was a maturity difference there. And we broke up a month after I turned 17, and almost 2 months after he turned 19. At first I thought nothing of that. But not that long ago, I realized how weird it was that he pursued me when he knew I was still in high school. Story 24. Going in kids' chat rooms in the early 2000s, I'm wise enough to know the majority of the people I spoke to weren't kids. But as a kid, I thought it was so cool I could log into a website and talk to people all over the world. Literally just put a name in the box and I'm in. No sign up, no vetting, nothing. Story 25. My sister and her boyfriend got an apartment, and my cousin and I, we were 12 at the time, wanted to stay the night to go swimming. One night as she was in the shower, her boyfriend would try so hard to give us mixed drinks to drink or share his beer with us. I remember us thinking it was fun because we were partying, but now I see he was trying to get us to drink to be a weirdo. He was in his 30s and my sister was barely 20. IDK, I just look back and feel so weirded out by him and what he tried to do. Story 26. My wife and I were driving with all our little kids in the back seat. The kids spotted a spider crawling up the side of my wife's seat near her head. While trying to drive, I started trying to whack the spider. I couldn't see it, so I just whacked as hard and fast as I could. I didn't want to get us killed, so I pulled over and continued with more targeted whacks. Some random dude behind us pulled over too, and came up to the driver's side window as if he had pulled me over. Turns out he was an ex-cop, and it looked to him like I had started beating my wife, and he came to check out the situation or whatever. We all got a great laugh out of that. It was kind of nosy, but he meant well, and it's good to have people who care about others. Story 27. When I, 25M, was really little, like around 5 or 6, my family was living in a newly developed neighborhood subdivision. Frequently, like 1 to 2 times a week maybe, little me would go to the decently sized wheelbarrow we had on our patio out back and take baths in it. Like my parents would fill up the wheelbarrow with water and soap, and I'd have a bath, out in the backyard patio. For me, it was fun at the time. My parents were also the chill type. at the time, where it was essentially letting me roam free around the neighborhood park and stuff, as long as I stayed on nearby streets. Thinking back on it now, it would have been scary for me if someone I didn't know saw me nude in a wheelbarrow. Thankfully, I grew out of wheelbarrow baths not long after that year, and I never had to chance or experience that ever. I cringe at myself a little thinking about it whenever I remember. Nowadays, if I hypothetically was a toddler and doing that, my parents would have definitely gotten calls. Also, for extra info, this was in roughly 2003-2004, somewhere in there. I don't know if that helps anything. Story 28. Video chatting with strangers on sites like Omegle. I normalized guys getting creepy and exposing themselves to me as a teenager as more of an annoyance than anything else. As an adult, I'm horrified thinking about how easy it was for me and my friends to chat to creepy and predatory men. Story 29. Had a huge crush on my gym teacher when I was a freshman in high school. I would change in front of the window to his office, and he'd always be watching through the blinds. He put his sweaty workout clothes in my gym locker a couple of times, and of course I enjoyed the hell out of that. My gym clothes would also come up missing from time to time. He thanked me at the end of the school year for keeping our thing a secret.